Most people never fail because they lack talent. They fail because they repeat the same thoughts so often that those thoughts become their identity. And the habit that determines whether you remain stuck or become extraordinary is not working harder, waking up earlier, or learning another strategy. It is the habit of consciously directing your mind. Think about that. You can spend years changing your circumstances while never changing the mental patterns that created them. And if the pattern remains, the results eventually return. Different job, same frustration, different relationship, same disappointment, different goal, same struggle. Why? Because your life is always moving in harmony with the image you hold of yourself. Most people never question the voice inside their head. They assume it is telling the truth. They listen to doubts, fears, and limitations as if they are facts. But what if that voice is nothing more than old programming? What if the person you believe you are is simply the result of repeated conditioning? The truth is shocking. You do not see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. And until that changes, nothing else truly changes. Every day, millions of people wake up and immediately reinforce the same paradigm. They think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, react in the same ways. Then they wonder why life keeps delivering familiar results. Imagine trying to sail across an ocean while your anchor remains buried deep beneath the water. No matter how hard you push forward, something invisible keeps pulling you back. That invisible anchor is your paradigm. It is the collection of beliefs stored in your subconscious mind. It controls your behavior, influences your decisions, and shapes your perception without asking for your permission. This is where the habit you must develop becomes life-changing. You must develop the habit of guarding and directing your thoughts every single day, not occasionally, not when you feel motivated, every day. Because thoughts are not harmless mental activity. Thoughts are causes, results are effects. Most people spend their lives trying to change effects while ignoring causes. They want greater income without changing their beliefs about money. They want confidence without changing their self-image. They want abundance while secretly expecting lack. Can you see the contradiction? Your subconscious mind cannot express what it has never accepted, and that realization opens the door to a completely different way of living. The habit of directing your mind begins with awareness. You start noticing the stories you tell yourself. You begin catching thoughts that say, "I can't do that." You become aware of inner conversations that whisper, "People like me never succeed." Instead of accepting those thoughts, you challenge them. You ask yourself a powerful question. Is this true? Or is this conditioning? That simple question can disrupt years of unconscious programming. The moment you stop identifying with limiting beliefs, they begin losing power, and something remarkable starts happening. You create space for a new self-image to emerge. Now, here's what most people miss. Positive thinking alone is not enough. You can repeat affirmations all day and still remain trapped if you emotionally identify with limitation. The real transformation occurs when thought and feeling become aligned, when you begin feeling worthy of success, when abundance starts feeling natural, when achievement becomes part of your identity rather than a distant dream. This is why the habit of mental direction is so powerful. It changes who you are being, and when your being changes, your results follow. Consider the story of Michael. For years, he worked in a small warehouse, earning barely enough to cover his bills. Every month felt like survival. He constantly worried about money and believed successful people possessed something special that he lacked. One evening, after hearing a message about paradigms and self-image, he realized something uncomfortable. His financial situation was not the real problem. His belief about himself was. That realization hit him harder than any setback he had ever experienced. So he made a decision. Every day he began observing his thoughts. He wrote down limiting beliefs. He replaced them with empowering ideas. He visualized himself as capable, valuable, and successful. Most importantly, he practiced feeling gratitude and confidence before external evidence appeared. At first, nothing changed. Then small opportunities appeared. He started speaking differently, thinking differently, acting differently. Within 2 years, he had launched a consulting business related to his industry experience. His income multiplied. His confidence soared. His relationships improved. What changed? His paradigm changed. The outer world, simply reflected the inner transformation. And that same principle is operating in your life right now, whether you realize it or not. So how do you develop this habit? First, become the observer of your thoughts. Second, replace limiting mental images with empowering ones. Third, spend time every day visualizing the person you choose to become. Fourth, protect your mind from negative influences that reinforce old paradigms. And fifth, act in harmony with your new self-image before results appear. That last step is where transformation accelerates, because action sends a message to the subconscious mind that your new identity is real. Remember this: your future is not created by circumstances. It is created by the thoughts you repeatedly impress upon your subconscious mind. The habit of directing your mind is the habit of directing your destiny. The moment you consciously choose your thoughts instead of unconsciously inheriting them, you stop living as a product of your past and begin living as the architect of your future. And that is the moment your entire life starts moving in a new direction. The person you are becoming already exists within you, waiting for permission to emerge. Give that person permission today. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to Proctor Mindset Lab and begin transforming your mind today. But there is another layer to this that most people never discover. Even after they begin monitoring their thoughts, they still wonder why lasting change feels slow. They become frustrated because they expect transformation to happen the moment they decide they want something different. Yet the subconscious mind does not respond to wishes. It responds to repetition. For years, perhaps decades, a particular program has been running beneath the surface of your awareness. It has influenced what you notice, what you expect, what you attempt, and what you avoid. That program was not built overnight, and it rarely dissolves overnight. This is where many people quit. They plant a seed and then dig it up every day to check whether it is growing. Imagine standing in a field after planting an acorn and demanding a towering oak tree by next week. It sounds absurd, yet people do exactly that with their goals. They visualize for 3 days. They affirm for a week. They stay committed for a month. Then they conclude nothing is happening. But something is happening. The roots are growing, and roots always grow before results become visible. The paradigm is being challenged. New neural pathways are forming. A different self-image is taking shape. The process is invisible before it becomes undeniable. That understanding alone can save you years of frustration, because when you know what is happening beneath the surface, you stop measuring progress only by external evidence. You begin measuring progress by internal transformation. Are you thinking differently? Are you reacting differently? Are you making decisions your old self would never have made? Those are signs that the paradigm is shifting. And once the paradigm shifts, reality begins rearranging itself around your new level of awareness. Now consider something even more profound. Most people believe confidence creates action, but often the reverse is true. Action creates confidence. Waiting to feel ready is one of the greatest traps a person can fall into. The subconscious mind learns through experience. Every time you take action that aligns with your desired identity, you send a powerful message to your deeper mind. You are telling yourself, this is who I am now. The person who wants financial freedom studies opportunities before feeling completely prepared. The person who desires confidence speaks up before confidence fully arrives. The person who wants success moves before certainty appears. Why? Because certainty is usually the result of action, not the requirement for it. Think about how many dreams remain trapped inside people who are waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment rarely comes. The perfect decision is made imperfectly and strengthened through action. This leads to another powerful realization. Your environment is constantly programming you. Every conversation, every social media feed, every television program, every opinion you repeatedly consume, all of it is shaping your subconscious mind. Most people are extremely careful about what they eat. Yet they are completely careless about what they allow into their minds. They consume fear, they consume doubt, they consume negativity. Then they wonder why their energy feels depleted. Your mind is fertile ground. Whatever is planted repeatedly will grow. If you fill it with limitation, limitation expands. If you fill it with possibility, possibility expands. This is why successful individuals become intentional about their mental diet. They understand that thoughts are not random visitors. Thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs become actions. Actions become results. And results eventually become a life. Protecting your mind is not selfish. It is necessary. The version of you that you are attempting to become requires a different level of mental discipline. Not because you are weak, because your potential is too valuable to leave unguarded. Now let's explore something that may challenge everything you have been taught. Many people spend their lives trying to get more money, more recognition, more opportunities, more success. But extraordinary transformation begins when you focus less on getting and more on becoming. This is the hidden secret behind sustained achievement. Success is not something you chase. Success is something you attract through the person you become. When your self-image expands, your behavior changes naturally. You stop forcing yourself to act differently because acting differently becomes normal. A person who sees themselves as healthy no longer battles every food choice. A person who sees themselves as prosperous approaches opportunities differently. A person who sees themselves as valuable communicates with greater confidence. The struggle decreases because identity has shifted, and identity always influences behavior more powerfully than willpower. That is why temporary motivation is never enough. Motivation rises and falls. Paradigms endure until replaced. So the real question is not whether you feel inspired today. The real question is who you are conditioning yourself to become. Every thought is casting a vote. Every decision is casting a vote. Every action is casting a vote. You are either reinforcing an old identity or strengthening a new one. There is no neutral ground. Even moments that seem insignificant matter. The choice to think possibility instead of limitation matters. The choice to act despite fear matters. The choice to hold a bigger vision matters. Small decisions repeated consistently create massive transformations. And here is the beautiful part. You do not need to transform your entire life today. You only need to become slightly more aligned with your future self than you were yesterday. One thought, one decision, one action, then another, and another. Eventually, the momentum becomes unstoppable. The old paradigm weakens. The new paradigm gains strength. The person you once hoped to become begins appearing in your daily actions, not occasionally, consistently. And when that happens, opportunities that once seemed invisible begin revealing themselves in ways that feel almost magical, though they are actually the natural consequence of a mind that has learned to expect, recognize, and act upon possibilities that were always there, waiting for a different version of you to notice them. And that is where life begins to feel completely different. Not because the world has changed, because you have changed. Most people spend years trying to force external conditions to cooperate with their desires. They believe happiness will arrive when the bank account reaches a certain number. They believe confidence will appear after enough achievements accumulate. They believe freedom is waiting somewhere in the future. But the future they seek is being created by the consciousness they carry right now. That realization can be uncomfortable. It removes excuses. It removes blame. It removes the illusion that someone else is responsible for your destiny. Yet it is also incredibly liberating. Because if your current results were influenced by your past conditioning, then your future results can be influenced by your new conditioning. Nothing becomes more empowering than understanding that. Think about the enormous potential hidden inside the average person. A person can spend years believing they are ordinary while carrying extraordinary abilities that have never been activated. Why? Because potential alone changes nothing. Potential must be expressed, and expression depends on self-image. If a seed believes it is incapable of becoming a tree, it still contains the blueprint. But unless the proper conditions exist, that blueprint remains dormant. Human beings are remarkably similar. Within you exists creativity you have not yet used, leadership you have not yet expressed, courage you have not yet discovered, wisdom you have not yet accessed. The tragedy is not lacking potential. The tragedy is living and dying without realizing how much was available. This is why the habit of directing your mind is so essential. It awakens dormant possibilities. It introduces you to parts of yourself that have been waiting beneath layers of conditioning. Now consider another powerful truth. Your subconscious mind does not care whether an idea is empowering or limiting. It accepts what is impressed upon it with emotion and repetition. That means many people unknowingly hypnotize themselves into mediocrity. Every day they repeat statements like, I never get lucky, I'm bad with money, I'm not confident, things never work out for me. Notice what happens. The subconscious mind hears repetition. It accepts the instruction. Then it organizes behavior around that belief. The individual experiences results that appear to confirm the belief. A cycle is formed, and because the results seem real, the belief becomes stronger. This loop can continue for decades, unless someone interrupts it, unless someone becomes aware, unless someone decides that their future deserves a better story than their past, that someone can be you, right now, at this moment, because awareness creates choice, and choice creates change. The moment you recognize a limiting belief, you gain the ability to reject it. The moment you reject it, you create space for something greater. The moment you repeatedly reinforce the greater idea, the subconscious mind begins accepting a new instruction. Eventually, the new belief becomes natural. Then the behavior changes. Then the results change, and suddenly the impossible begins looking inevitable. Many people call this luck. It is not luck. It is alignment. Alignment between thought, emotion, belief, and action. When those elements work together, momentum builds rapidly. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to accelerate towards success after years of struggle? Observers often assume the breakthrough happened overnight, but they are only seeing the visible part of the process. They are seeing the fruit. They are not seeing the roots. They are not seeing the months of disciplined thinking, the repeated visualization, the emotional conditioning, the countless moments of choosing possibility over doubt. The breakthrough appears sudden because the preparation was invisible. Never underestimate invisible preparation. It is often the most important work you will ever do. Every time you choose a more empowering thought, you are investing in a future result. Every time you hold a vision despite current circumstances, you are investing in a future result. Every time you refuse to identify with limitation, you are investing in a future result. The investment may not pay immediately, but it is accumulating. And accumulation eventually creates transformation. Now let's examine something few people discuss. As your paradigm changes, discomfort often increases before results improve. Why? Because growth requires leaving familiar territory. Your old identity wants certainty. Your new identity requires expansion, and expansion can feel uncomfortable. You may outgrow conversations that once felt normal. You may lose interest in habits that once consumed your attention. You may begin questioning assumptions that everyone around you accepts without thought. At first, this can feel lonely, but it is actually evidence of growth. The caterpillar cannot become a butterfly while remaining a caterpillar. Transformation always involves transition. Do not fear that phase. Embrace it. The discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. The old self is losing influence. The new self is gaining strength. And eventually, a remarkable shift occurs. You stop trying to become successful. You start thinking like a successful person. You stop trying to become confident. You start seeing yourself as confident. You stop trying to become abundant. You begin operating from abundance. That distinction changes everything, because what you consistently identify with becomes your reality. Identity is powerful, far more powerful than circumstances, far more powerful than temporary emotions, far more powerful than external opinions. When your identity changes, your standards change. When your standards change, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your future changes. This is why the habit you must develop is not merely positive thinking. It is conscious self-creation. It is the daily practice of selecting thoughts that align with the life you intend to build. It is the refusal to allow old programming to dictate your future. It is the commitment to becoming the person capable of receiving the opportunities, relationships, abundance, and achievements you desire. Because the life you want is not waiting at the end of some distant road. It is waiting at the edge of a transformed mind. And every day you consciously direct your thoughts, strengthen your self-image, and align your actions with your highest vision, you move closer to discovering that the greatest limitation was never your circumstances, your background, your resources, or your environment. The greatest limitation was simply believing that you were less powerful than you truly are. And once that illusion begins to dissolve, a completely new reality becomes available to you. You start noticing opportunities that were always present but previously invisible. You hear ideas differently. You interpret challenges differently. You respond to setbacks differently. The external world may appear unchanged to everyone else, yet your experience of it becomes profoundly different. Why? Because perception determines possibility. Two people can stand in the same circumstances and create entirely different futures. One sees obstacles. The other sees opportunities. One sees reasons to quit. The other sees reasons to persist. One sees evidence of limitation. The other sees evidence of potential. The difference is rarely intelligence. The difference is conditioning. The difference is paradigm. This is why some individuals rise from extremely difficult circumstances while others remain trapped despite favorable conditions. Their inner world determines how they interpret the outer world, and interpretation shapes action. Think carefully about that. The events of your life do not possess meaning on their own. Meaning is assigned. A setback can become a reason to surrender, or it can become a reason to grow stronger. A rejection can become proof of inadequacy, or it can become preparation for something greater. A failure can become a permanent identity, or it can become valuable feedback. The event remains the same. The meaning changes, and meaning influences everything that follows. Most people never consciously choose the meanings they assign. They react automatically. They allow old programming to interpret every experience. As a result, they continue recreating familiar outcomes. But when you begin directing your mind intentionally, something extraordinary happens. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" You start asking, "How can this serve my growth?" That single shift alters the trajectory of your life. Victims ask different questions than creators. Victims search for blame. Creators search for lessons. Victims focus on limitations. Creators focus on possibilities. Victims surrender power. Creators reclaim it. And power begins with responsibility, not blame, responsibility. There is a tremendous difference. Blame keeps your attention on the past. Responsibility places your attention on your ability to influence the future. When you accept responsibility for your thoughts, your reactions, your beliefs, and your decisions, you regain control over the direction of your life. Many people resist this idea because they confuse responsibility with guilt. They are not the same thing. Guilt weakens. Responsibility strengthens. Guilt says, "I am trapped by what happened." Responsibility says, "I can choose what happens next." One creates paralysis. The other creates momentum. Momentum is one of the most valuable forces you can develop. Success is rarely the result of one dramatic decision. More often, it is the result of hundreds of small decisions moving in the same direction. A thought repeated, a vision revisited, a habit reinforced, a standard maintained. Over time, these small actions compound. The results become extraordinary because the consistency becomes extraordinary. This principle governs every area of life. Financial freedom compounds. Confidence compounds. Knowledge compounds. Discipline compounds. Even self-image compounds. Every day you strengthen a new identity, that identity becomes more dominant. Eventually, it becomes stronger than the old programming. And that is when transformation accelerates. Now, there is another habit closely connected to directing your mind. It is the habit of guarding your vision. Most people talk themselves out of their dreams long before reality ever has the chance. They begin with excitement. They imagine new possibilities. They feel inspired, then doubt enters the conversation. Soon they start seeking validation from people who have never pursued similar goals. They expose fragile dreams to strong opinions, and little by little the vision weakens. You must understand something. Not everyone can see what you see. Not everyone can feel what you feel. Not everyone can recognize the potential that exists within you. If you depend on universal approval before taking action, you may wait forever. The greatest achievements in history were often dismissed before they were celebrated. The vision arrives before the evidence. The belief arrives before the result. The commitment arrives before the breakthrough. This is why faith is so powerful. Not blind faith. Creative faith. The ability to hold a vision in your mind long enough for reality to catch up. The ability to remain committed when circumstances suggest retreat. The ability to trust growth that cannot yet be measured. Faith is not wishful thinking. It is disciplined expectation. It is the decision to believe in possibility before proof appears. And when combined with consistent action, it becomes a transformational force. Think about the person you want to become. Not the version shaped by fear, not the version shaped by limitation, not the version shaped by past disappointments. The highest version, the strongest version, the most abundant version, the most confident version. How does that person think? How does that person speak? How does that person respond to challenges? How does that person treat opportunities? How does that person treat themselves? These questions are not exercises in imagination alone. They are instructions for transformation, because every time you align your thoughts and actions with that future identity, you strengthen the connection between who you are and who you are becoming. The gap begins closing. The future self stops feeling distant. The new identity starts feeling familiar. And familiarity is important. The subconscious mind embraces what feels familiar. When success feels unfamiliar, people unconsciously resist it. When abundance feels unfamiliar, people unconsciously sabotage it. When confidence feels unfamiliar, people unconsciously shrink from it. Your task is to make greatness familiar, to rehearse it mentally, to feel it emotionally, to embody it behaviorally, until the extraordinary becomes natural, until the impossible becomes expected, until the future you once imagined begins showing up in your daily reality. Because the moment your subconscious mind accepts a new standard of possibility, it starts organizing your perceptions, decisions, behaviors, and opportunities around that standard, quietly transforming not only what you do, but who you believe yourself to be. And that shift in identity becomes the foundation upon which every meaningful achievement in your life will ultimately be built.
You have to understand something very fundamental about human life that most people never truly grasp. You are not responding to life as it is. You are responding to life through a mental filter that has been formed over many years. That filter is your subconscious programming, and once you see how it works, you begin to realize something almost unsettling, yet deeply empowering. Most of what you call personality is actually pattern. Let's break this down in a simple way. Your subconscious mind is like a recording device. From childhood onward, it has been absorbing repeated thoughts, emotional reactions, and interpretations of experiences. It does not judge whether these inputs are useful or harmful. It simply accepts what is repeated with emotion. If a child repeatedly hears, "Be careful, money is hard to get," that message may settle quietly into the subconscious. Later in life, even without consciously believing it, that person may struggle with financial confidence, not because of lack of opportunity, but because of internal conditioning. This is how paradigms are formed. A paradigm is simply a mental program that controls habitual behavior. And here is the key point most people miss. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your programming. So when someone says, "I know what I should do, but I just don't do it," what they are really describing is a conflict between conscious desire and subconscious programming. Let's take a simple example. A person wants to save money. They understand budgeting. They even set financial goals. But every month, they overspend. Why? Because their subconscious identity might be someone who enjoys spending or someone who never has enough. so the behavior automatically aligns with identity, not intention. This is why willpower alone feels exhausting. You are trying to override a program instead of changing it. Now let's talk about self-image. Your self-image is the mental picture you hold of yourself. It is the thermostat of your life. If your self-image is set to, "I am someone who struggles," then even when you experience temporary success, you will unconsciously adjust back to what feels familiar. For example, someone may receive a promotion at work, but if they do not see themselves as a confident leader, they may feel uncomfortable in that role. Over time, they may even sabotage their progress or avoid further responsibility, not because they are incapable, but because it does not match their identity. This is why two people can have the same opportunity and only one grows from it. Now let's go deeper. Beliefs are not formed by logic. They are formed by repetition and emotional intensity. If you hear something once, it has little effect. But if you hear it repeatedly, especially during emotionally significant moments, it begins to feel true. Think about a child repeatedly hearing, "You are very smart." Over time, that child may develop confidence in learning. Now think about another child repeatedly hearing, "You are careless." That identity can quietly shape how they behave for years. Neither belief is objectively true in a permanent sense, but once accepted by the subconscious mind, it becomes self-reinforcing. The mind seeks evidence to confirm what it already believes. So if you believe, "I am not good with people," your mind will unconsciously highlight moments that support that belief and ignore evidence that contradicts it. This is why change feels difficult. You are not just changing behavior, you are challenging a belief system that has been reinforced for years. Now, how does this actually shape real life? Let's look at money, confidence, and daily habits. Someone with a strong self-image of financial stability tends to make decisions differently. They are more likely to invest in growth, learn new skills, and stay calm during financial uncertainty. Someone with a weak self-image around money may avoid opportunities, delay decisions, or operate from fear, even when opportunities are available. Confidence works the same way. A confident person does not wait to feel perfect before speaking or acting. Their identity allows them to move first and adjust later. A less confident person waits for certainty, and in doing so, misses opportunities that required action before certainty. So the real question becomes this: how do you change something that has been programmed over years? The answer is not force. It is repetition with awareness. Let's make this practical. Step 1 is awareness. You begin observing your thoughts without judgment. Notice patterns. When do you feel doubt? When do you hesitate? When do you talk yourself out of action? You are not trying to fix anything yet. You are simply becoming conscious of the program running in the background. For example, you might notice, every time I think about starting something new, I immediately think I will fail. That is a pattern, not a truth. Step 2 is interruption. Once you notice a limiting thought, you gently interrupt it, not with force, but with questioning. Is this actually true? Or is this something I have learned to believe? This creates space between you and the program, and in that space, change becomes possible. Step 3 is replacement. You begin introducing a new idea that aligns with the person you want to become. Not exaggerated fantasy, but believable direction. Instead of saying, "I am a millionaire," when your mind rejects it, you might say, "I am learning how to manage money wisely." That feels more acceptable, so the subconscious begins to allow it. Step 4 is identity-based action. This is where transformation becomes real. You start acting in small ways that align with your new identity. If you want to become confident, you speak up once when you normally would stay silent. If you want financial discipline, you save a small amount consistently, even if it is small. If you want self-respect, you keep small promises to yourself daily. These actions seem minor, but they are not minor to the subconscious mind. They are evidence. and the subconscious learns from evidence. Over time, these repeated actions begin to shift your self-image. You are no longer just thinking differently, you are becoming different. And this is the most important truth of all. Lasting change does not happen when you force new behavior. It happens when new behavior becomes consistent enough to redefine identity. When your identity shifts, your habits shift naturally. When your habits shift, your results shift automatically. So if you want to understand your life, do not just look at your circumstances, look at your patterns. And if you want to change your life, do not start by trying to change everything at once. Start by changing how you think about yourself. One thought, one decision, one action at a time, because slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, you are always becoming someone.